The story of Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini was born on July 29, 1883, in the small town of Perdapio in central Italy. His father, Alessandro Mussolini, was a blacksmith and a passionate socialist, while his mother, Rosa, was a devout schoolteacher. Benito grew up in a working-class environment shaped by political discussion, economic hardship, and intense pride in Italian identity. His father named him after Mexican revolutionary Benito Juarez, signaling the radical political hopes he had for his son. As a child, Mussolini was intelligent but unruly and often violent. He was expelled from several schools for misbehavior. Despite this, he managed to earn a teaching diploma in 1901 and briefly worked as a school teacher. However, his ambitions extended far beyond the classroom. He moved to Switzerland in 1902 to avoid military service and immersed himself in socialist activism, writing for left-wing newspapers and giving fiery speeches. During this time, Mussolini read deeply into Marxist theory, revolution, and the writings of philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche. He also worked various odd jobs and even spent time in jail for protesting against the government. In 1904, he returned to Italy, completed his military service, and began climbing the ranks of the Italian Socialist Party. By 1912, Mussolini had become the editor of Avanti, the official newspaper of the Socialist Party. He was a rising star on the Italian left, outspoken, charismatic, and highly influential. But when World War I broke out in 1914, Mussolini shocked his comrades by supporting Italian involvement in the war, arguing it could bring about revolutionary change. This position clashed with the party's anti-war stance, and Mussolini was expelled. After his break with socialism, Mussolini founded his own newspaper, Il Popolo d'Italia, and began developing a new political ideology. It blended nationalism, authoritarianism, and militarism, what would eventually be known as fascism. In 1919, he formed the Fasci di Combattimento, or Fighting Bands, a paramilitary group made up largely of war veterans, nationalists, and anti-communists. They wore black uniforms, used violence against leftists, and promoted the idea of a strong, united Italy. In 1922, taking advantage of widespread unrest, economic crisis, and political gridlock, Mussolini organized the March on Rome. Thousands of his followers gathered, demanding the resignation of the existing government. Though the march itself was largely symbolic, it succeeded in intimidating King Victor Emmanuel III, who invited Mussolini to form a government. At just 39 years old, Mussolini became Italy's prime minister. Once in power, Mussolini moved quickly to dismantle Italy's democracy. He banned opposition parties, censored the press, and created a secret police. By the late 1920s, he had transformed Italy into a one-party fascist dictatorship. He called himself Il Duce, meaning the leader, and filled the country with slogans, parades, and propaganda praising the strength and unity of the Italian state. Mussolini dreamed of restoring Italy to the glory of the Roman Empire. He pursued aggressive expansion, including the brutal invasion of Ethiopia in 1935. His regime used chemical weapons and committed atrocities against civilians, leading to international condemnation. Nevertheless, Mussolini was celebrated by fascist supporters for restoring national pride and projecting power abroad. In 1936, Mussolini aligned Italy with Nazi Germany, forming a partnership with Adolf Hitler. The two formed the Rome-Berlin Axis, which would become the backbone of the Axis powers in World War II. Mussolini increasingly modeled aspects of his regime on Hitler's, including anti-Semitic policies. In 1938, he passed racial laws that discriminated against Jews in Italy, banning them from schools, jobs, and public life. These laws marked a sharp shift from earlier Italian policy and were widely unpopular. When World War II began in 1939, Mussolini kept Italy out of the fighting at first. But after Germany's early victories, he decided to join the war in 1940, hoping to share in the spoils. This decision proved disastrous. Italian forces were ill-prepared and suffered defeats in Greece, North Africa, and the Soviet Union. The Italian economy struggled, and the public grew weary of war and fascism. By 1943, Italy was in crisis. Allied forces invaded Sicily, and Mussolini's own Grand Council turned against him. On July 25, 1943, he was arrested on orders from the king and replaced as prime minister. Italy soon surrendered to the Allies. But Mussolini's story did not end there. In September 1943, German commandos rescued him from captivity in a daring operation ordered by Hitler. Mussolini was installed as the head of a puppet regime in northern Italy called the Italian Social Republic, which had little real power and was entirely dependent on Nazi Germany. It was during this time that Italy descended into civil war, with fascist loyalists, German troops, and Italian partisans all fighting for control. By 1945, with Germany collapsing and Allied forces closing in, Mussolini attempted to flee to Switzerland with his mistress, Clara Petacci. Disguised as a German soldier, he was captured by Italian partisans near Lake Como on April 27, 1945. The next day, he and Petacci were executed by firing squad. Their bodies were taken to Milan and hung upside down in a public square, where crowds gathered to view the fallen dictator, a dramatic and symbolic end to his reign. Mussolini had ruled Italy for more than 2 decades, but in death, he became a warning of how power and ideology, when unchecked, can lead to destruction. Benito Mussolini's legacy is deeply controversial. To some, he was a bold nationalist who sought to modernize Italy and restore its dignity. To others, he was a ruthless dictator whose policies led to war, suffering, and repression. He helped pioneer the modern fascist movement, laying a foundation later followed by other authoritarian leaders. Today, Mussolini's life remains a subject of intense historical study. His rise to power, use of propaganda, cult of personality, and alignment with Nazi Germany are often cited as examples of how democracy can be undermined from within. His story stands as a stark reminder of the dangers of authoritarianism and the seductive nature of radical politics during times of crisis. If you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and share.